Foreign Affairs Minister François-Philippe has a meeting today with Iran's foreign minister. The Canadian government is pushing for an independent criminal probe into Iran's shooting down of the Ukraine passenger jet. And as Margaret Evans tells us, Ottawa also wants more access for consular officials who are in Iran to help the families of Canadian victims.
This has been the concern from the Canadian government to begin with, especially given the way this story developed with the Iranian government denying that it was even possible for a missile to have struck down the plane. We are hearing this morning from sources in Tehran that this meeting between the Canadian and Iranian foreign ministers is going to go ahead, and I think that what we'll be expecting is a repeat of what we saw yesterday when the foreign ministers from the five nations impacted in the crash, Afghanistan, Sweden, Ukraine, the United Kingdom, and Canada met with messages for the Iranian government. Their citizens, of course, also impacted. But what our foreign minister, Champagne, was demanding was greater access, greater guarantees in terms of the participation of Canadian investigators. They're promising the victims, the families of the victims of the crash, justice for their loved ones. And they say that means following through a process that could take years with an end goal of compensation and complete transparency. One of the things that he pointed out in the meeting of serious concern for Ottawa was repatriation of remains. Iran does not recognize dual citizens, so the second passport is not always recognized, and that's raised concerns for families who want to see the remains of their loved ones brought back to Canada. So that was one point that he mentioned. And again, he talked about being able to have Canadian participation in the investigation into what happened, including access to the black box when they start to decode it, those kinds of things. So I think we're going to see those kinds of pressings from the minister, and I think it's pretty much a consistent message from Ottawa to Iran throughout this process. Iran has said it's offering to cooperate. It has been offering to cooperate, and we'll see where it goes from there.
And that was the CBC's Margaret Evans in London. Now, a spokesperson for Iran's foreign ministry is pushing back at Canada's demands this morning, saying the Iranian government is cooperating with Canadian officials and warning that Canada should avoid turning the disaster into a political issue. And Iran's supreme leader is speaking about the Flight 752 disaster for the first time since Iranian forces admitted to mistakenly shooting down the passenger jet. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is defending Iran's military. In a rare sermon at Friday morning prayers, he told worshippers that Iranian forces were trying to protect the country. He is calling for national unity in response to the protests in Iran in the aftermath of the disaster. Khamenei also accuses the country's enemies of trying to use the disaster to weaken Iran.